Hey, my name's Thomas. I work in admissions at SMFA at Tufts University. I'm also a graduate of the school, and I'm talking to Simon Remiszewski today. Simon, tell us a little bit about your role at SMFA at Tufts.
Yeah, for sure. So I actually graduated from SMFA as well in 2015 and then came back to the school to be a studio manager. And I am the studio manager of digital fabrication. So I manage all of the digital fabrication technologies on campus. And I primarily work out of the advanced production lab on the second floor.
Cool. And can you tell us a little bit about what kind of things students find in the APL?
Yeah, so the APL is sort of a locus point for digital fab on the SMFA campus. We have a big laser cutter and some 3D printers and a vinyl cutter. And we use those tools primarily for the fabrication of fine arts projects.
And can you tell us a little bit about how running a space like that is different inside of an interdisciplinary studio art program?
Being part of the larger Tufts University and Medford campus, of course, there are tons of different fabrication facilities that are accessible to all students. A lot of those facilities have the same sort of tools that we have. Those tools on those other facilities are kind of a little bit more focused towards the engineering side of things. So I think it's really important and exciting for SMFA to have our own set of tools to do a little bit more experimental work with, mess around in ways that facilitate the fabrication of artworks for students.
Cool. And speaking of the fabrication of artwork for students, are there some projects that are really impressive that you've helped out with or seen?
Oftentimes, I mean, every day we have something really novel coming through the door of the SMFA. I will say that the Advanced Production Lab, though I manage the space and manage the technologies, it's also run by student employees on a very even playing field. So we all work together to make this place inviting and make sure to help students and peers in any way possible. The projects range all over the place. Given it's an interdisciplinary institution, people will use the laser cutter to laser cut fabric for a larger sewing work they're doing in the fiber studios, or maybe they're trying to laser cut something as a part of a larger machine. We've seen people make there was a fortune wheel made using digital fabrication tools where we 3D printed and laser cut components to make this huge wheel of fortune as part of a larger performance. Students have come in. A couple of years ago, a student was really interested in making tools, or they were doing a research project on tool making. So they wanted to use digital fabrication tools only to fabricate a pencil. So we ended up laser cutting the components to build this pencil. And then we realized we needed an actual lead to be able to use the pencil as the tool. So we decided to go out into the fens, the nature area across the street from SMFA, gather a bunch of dry bark, and basically use the laser cutter to create a controlled burn. I was there to make sure that that happened in a safe manner, and we used that paste that we got from the controlled burn as a charcoal-like material to then put into the pencil, and it worked as a great tool. We've also seen last year we were using seaweed and basically taking these illustrations, converting them into digital files, and then engraving them onto sheets of seaweed in the laser cutter. So they created these edible books and kind of toasted the seaweed in a way that was relatively tasty.
Delicious.
And then we also do a bunch of 3D scanning in the space. So we use the 3D scanner. I personally am very invested in 3D scanning as part of my own artistic practice. So I try to share that knowledge base with students as much as possible. So we do a lot of 3D scanning where we'll basically 3D scan students or objects and then bring them into digital suites for rendering, or maybe we'll 3D print them or even turn them into laser cuttable files so that we can take these scalable models and turn them into these large scale physical objects.
Cool. And speaking a little of your practice, I know I'm a fan of it. Would you talk a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, so my practice has kind of gone all over the place over the years, but it's always had this center point in emerging technologies. So for a while, of course, during school, I was really interested in drones as a research project. I was making a lot of work around drones, both on the military and consumer side. Really interested in surveillance technologies. Got into digital fabrication, of course, which is where I learned the skills to kind of bring to the school in the first place. And more recently, I was getting into virtual reality a little bit, and then that kind of expanded to this whole concept around ambient computing and how we are kind of starting to live in like a sense of virtual reality. So I've been doing a lot of research into ambient computing, and then also making a lot of music and kind of world building this research project out into some aesthetic sonic objects. And then I'm also super involved, or for a while I was very, very involved in Boston's underground music scene. So I was doing a lot of work to kind of facilitate events and make things happen in that space as well.
Cool. Yeah. And speaking of that, do you mind sharing a little bit of what you're listening to right now?
Yeah, totally. So for I'd say over the last couple months, I got really into like super hard and fast techno, specifically coming out of like Copenhagen and Brussels. And then as we kind of entered this moment of reflection, I'll say I kind of found myself going back into the ambient music spectrum as also part of my research project. But I think it's kind of interesting that there's been this like rising trajectory of ambient music, and now we're finally in the space where it seems really fitting to kind of find ourselves in a reflective, calm, and maybe emotionally heightened state. So I've been listening to a lot of stuff. I'd say there's this artist Malibu who makes this really cinematic ambient stuff that has been like really close to my heart right now.
Cool.
Yeah,
All
a lot of
right.
that.
Check it out. Thank you so much, Simon. I appreciate you taking the time to talk a little bit about what you do at SMFA. Great to talk to you.
Yeah, it's great to talk to you too.